Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day, good moment to you, wherever and whenever you are on this sweet, wild, sacred earth. I'm Julie Ling, and from the wild sweetness of my very own heart, this is the voice of wonder. Thank you for joining me. Welcome. I'm not even sure what's alive to be spoken yet, so we'll let it settle in as we do. Just taking a moment to ride the breath in, bringing freshness and newness and life, and letting go with a sigh, releasing anything that is not part of this sacred now. As you settle in, fine as mist, soft as flower petals, spent falling from the trees, or leaves turning orange and gold, settling. Just notice how easy it is to come into your sweet, wild, sacred body. Outside my window, the apple tree waves at me, and I extend that wave to you. Welcome into this moment that will never come again. Feeling yourself settling like mist, like fog. And the ease with which you do it, and the ease that comes as you do, feeling yourself in your arms, in your elbows, your belly, your hips, settling, settling, settling into this moment. And this morning, I want to invite you again into the world filled with possibilities, the diamond of being that has more facets that we can count, that sparkles and reflects back all the nuances, all the colors, all the shades and angles and shapes of light that there is. The full spectrum of color, the full spectrum of light, the many dimensions and facets. A two-faceted diamond would be so boring. It would be sorry, really. And when we allow ourselves to fall back into duality thinking that has only two facets, right and wrong, and usually there's only one possible right, and so all the other myriad of options fall into this one hard plane of wrong. It's not very pretty, is it? We miss out on all the rest. When right becomes the way we were taught, the way we learned, the way that's familiar, the way that's right, the way that's like us, we lose all the facets. We lose the multiplicity of possibilities. we lose the spectrum, we lose the rainbow. There's only black and white, and they aren't even colors. In the world of pigment, black is all the pigments and white is none of them. In the world of color, black is no visible light and white is the full spectrum of light contained in it. So they aren't really colors. And yet we live in a technicolor world. How sad to miss it. And when we see through the lens of black and white, we miss the other possibilities. And when we see through the lens of only good, bad, and often what blends in good is very limited, we are unable to see the range of color. When I spoke the other day about meeting my own self-criticism, which came up to protect me, the pain of all these vitreous things I had heard other moments in my life being repeated by me was less painful than feeling the disappointment and hurt that they were protecting me from. And that lens of right, wrong, good, bad, you're wrong, there's nothing right about you, there's nothing good about you, you're just bad, was like a pair of blinders that kept me from seeing the feelings that needed to be felt. And I realized it was an act of control. What always comes up for me is a line from Pretty Woman. I say who, I say what, I say how much, I say who. Like, I'm going to beat myself up, but I'm doing it and I'm in control of doing it. And so there's no shock of it coming from out there and broadsiding and blindsiding me. And yet, this lens of right and wrong, and there's only one, and I couldn't possibly have right, so wrong and bad was all I got. It was a false sense of power that locked me in to one choice and basically put me in a dungeon of my own creating. And that is so sad. And I want you to just drop into that energy for a moment and notice, are there places where you have done this, you have made yourself wrong and bad, and now you realize you did it to protect yourself from the pain of what was under it? Maybe it was anger, maybe it was blame, which also is protective. Usually underneath there's hurt, there's disappointment, there's sadness. And can you touch just for a moment? Maybe like a child swimming to the bottom of a pool and touching the bottom and coming back up. What those feelings were for you that you weren't able to meet. The really beautiful part of this story is that I realized when I finally recognized that all this vitriosity that I thought I had cleared was coming up again, that this part was trying to protect me fiercely because the pain of hurt and disappointment was so big. I didn't feel like I could bear it. And I realized that what I had done was to do something I promised I wouldn't. Damn, I hate when I'm human like that. And I'm learning to love when I'm human like that. I realized that I had abandoned that part of me that felt the hurt and disappointment and made that part of me wrong and bad. What did you expect? What did you expect? Of course, they're all more important than you. Ooh, ouch. And that in the end, it matters far less whether or not those things are true. And really, that was my fear of what other people were thinking of me, and that was why they had not done what I'd hoped they would. that ultimately what they thought was far less important than what I think or what I act on as if it's true. And I remember saying, well, when I barely slept that night, maybe they're right. Because fighting just creates resistance, and we know how that goes. And maybe they're not. And I'm going to act as if you're good and worthy, as if you're lovable no matter what, and as if you get to have all your feelings. Of course, you were disappointed. People that have been a part of your life for a long time forgot this thing you wanted them to remember or didn't say anything about it. Of course, you are. It's human to be disappointed and hurt. And you get to be human. You get to have these feelings. And even if they're deeper and bigger than you wanted, I can hold you in them. I can meet you in them. And I realized this, but didn't speak about it on that video. And I'll put a link to it in the link if you want to check it out. I realized that that's the part I can respond to. That's the place where I can have control that's healthy and healing and nourishing. And that could only happen when I stepped out of the blinders of right, wrong, good, bad, black, white, yes, no, like me, other. And where does that fit in? I think so many of us have been taught that anything different is other and wrong. Anything too different, too other. The word barbarian comes from the root is barbar. It means literally one who speaks barbar, someone who speaks a different language, somebody who is different, somebody who is other. And we've been taught that feeling too many feelings, yeah, that's really uncomfortable and not okay. And that's like other. I don't get that. I don't do that. We don't do that. In my family, in my culture, we have this narrow range of feelings that are okay. And anything beyond, yeah, no. We're not like that. That's out there. This is how we make shadow. We say, oh, it's other. This part of me, this deep disappointment, this pain, this hurt, that's other. No, not going to feel it, not going to go there. And we do it outside as well with things that are uncomfortable. And as one of my teachers said, growth happens in a place of discomfort. So I invite you, and so often does healing, meeting these feelings that we've been taught aren't okay to have, is really uncomfortable. And yet, when we meet them in that place of discomfort, wholeness happens, healing happens, relief happens, ease happens, love happens, comfort happens. And the potential, the possibility of a kind of control, which I think of more as responsibility, the ability to respond to ourselves, to hold ourselves. And when we do that, then we are able to respond to and hold others in their big feelings that are uncomfortable. And whatever might be coming up that's uncomfortable for them and maybe uncomfortable for us, for me, for you. And that's a gift. And this is what creates more compassion, more healing, more grace, more peace, more kindness. If you cannot see yourself with a kind eye in your feelings, how can you see other people with a kind eye in theirs? In some cases, we've been taught it's okay to nurture others, but not ourselves. But there's this point where it's like, oh, it's too big. And inside, it's like, how come you get to have that and I don't? And that's resentment, and resentment always pushes. And when we push, we create resistance. And that trick never works. It usually gets what we don't want within and without. So today, I invite you to simply notice where things like this come up for you. That critical voice that's so sharp that and cuts us off from whatever feelings are underneath it. Almost always it comes up because we're scared of something that feels too big or too painful or too other or too weird or too not okay or too different. And when we embrace all those things inside of ourselves, they become less scary out there. What if we don't always have to be right? What if we always get to be perfect? And that there is grace in that. I invite you in this moment to step into just a little more of that grace. So today, whatever arises within you, I invite you to step in just a little closer to what might feel uncomfortable. If you notice that sharp, sharp voice, to just look at what's behind that curtain of the great and powerful laws that will tell you how you are wrong and bad. It's usually a small, scared person, a small, scared part. And what if you meet them and hold them? Drop the visor of black, white, good, bad, right, wrong, and look at the spectrum. All the possibilities, all the facets of you. What part, its beauty, do you need to see and recognize and hold? Maybe that critical voice, ooh, this is juicy, is like the oyster that's been built from the irritation of all those judgmental, harsh, critical, right, wrong, yes, no, good, bad, and you always wind up wrong somehow. And even when we're right, it's not very satisfying, because that pushing, that resistance, it has its ping, but really, ultimately, it doesn't feel very good. What if you just notice and maybe see and meet what's hiding behind the curtain? What wonders await you and us? So today, just contemplate the possibility. Notice even in what tiny measures come up for you, how you can drop those blinders and see all the colors, all the magic, all the beauty, all the facets, all the possibilities, and maybe even more of the feelings, because they are part of the full spectrum of who we are. That's a juicy place, and we're only here for so long. And why would you deprive yourself of any of the color or the beauty of it? Have a beautiful, blessed day in the beautiful technicolor Oz of life, of you, of your experience, of your feelings, of your possibilities. I'm Julie Ling, wishing that you let today your heart sing with a few more notes, with a little more color, and that you hold all of it, or more of it, just a little bit more. Have a beautiful and blessed day.